You ever notice how sometimes everything falls apart right before it all comes together? That's not chaos, my dear. That's choreography, the unseen kind, the type you don't catch until the encore. Because somewhere out there, forces you'll never meet are already in motion, clearing your path, dissolving your obstacles, making space for your arrival. They don't wear wings or glow in light. They move in silence, inside conversations that were never meant for your ears, through rooms that never had your name on the door. Every setback was a reroute. Every betrayal was a detour disguised as a disaster. They thought they were pushing you out. They were actually making room for you to grow. Every time someone tried to dim your light, the universe adjusted the voltage. You weren't losing connections. You were being upgraded. The people who vanished didn't reject you. They were removed. Strategically. Efficiently. Like chess pieces exiting a board they no longer qualified to play on. And while you thought you were stuck, something was studying your every move. The calm behind your storms, the patience behind your silence. That energy saw your stillness and whispered, "They're ready." Because power doesn't arrive when you're loud. It arrives when you're aligned. They think you're lucky. You're not lucky. You're chosen by precision. You weren't spared. You were selected. And now, every closed door that confused you will reveal itself as protection in disguise. Because when a force you can't see starts rearranging the timeline, it doesn't ask for your permission. It simply prepares your position. You're not walking alone, my dear. You're walking with orchestration. Every delay was divine synchronization. And soon, those who laughed at your silence will realize the quiet was never weakness. It was the sound of destiny, clearing its throat before speaking your name. They called it bad luck. My dear, you called it confusion. But it was never either, it was construction. You just couldn't see the blueprint yet. Because when the universe starts rearranging, it looks like dismantling first. It has to tear down the version of your life that couldn't handle the weight of what's coming next. That's why everything felt unstable, not because you were cursed, but because the foundation was being rebuilt under your feet. You see, when a higher force starts to move, it doesn't announce it with trumpets. It doesn't post signs saying better days ahead. It hides the blessings inside of chaos to see who's got the patience to wait through the noise. And you waited, didn't you? You didn't quit when doors closed. You didn't panic when silence answered your calls. You learned to sit inside uncertainty, and that's exactly what made the force choose you. They couldn't see it. They thought you were stuck while you were actually sinking. They thought you were lost while you were aligning. Every no that broke your heart was a divine yes, being rerouted through another timeline. Because the things meant for you were never supposed to arrive through comfort. They were supposed to arrive through chaos. Comfort hides truth. Chaos reveals character. And while they judged your struggle, something bigger was observing your reaction. It's always watching, not your results, but your responses. Because power doesn't care about performance. It cares about pattern. And your pattern spoke louder than words. You stayed kind in rooms that mocked your silence. You stayed grounded when life was shaking the walls. You stayed real when everyone else performed strength online but collapsed in private. That's when the unseen energy made its move. It started to remove. rearrange, and rebuild everything around you. Not as punishment, but as preparation. Every time you lost something you thought you needed, it was because your future version wouldn't survive with it attached. The chaos was not an ending, it was the cleanup before arrival. You've been in training without knowing it. Every delay sculpted your discipline. Every disappointment trained your discernment. You were being prepared to walk through storms with your head up, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. Because soon, when everything clicks, when all the noise settles and the pattern makes sense, you'll realize what felt like chaos was choreography. You'll see how the darkest moments weren't setbacks but setups. And those who laughed at your silence will whisper, "How did they know when to wait?" The answer will be simple. You didn't, but the Force did. And it's been clearing your path since the first time they underestimated your light. It starts subtle, my dear. The air feels different. The silence feels charged. You wake up one morning and something invisible is lighter. It's not the world changing. It's the resistance fading. You don't realize it at first, because you've lived so long in survival mode that peace feels suspicious. But it's not fake calm. It's alignment. The kind that doesn't need noise to prove movement. You begin to notice how people react differently now. Like they sense something has shifted in you, but can't explain it. Their tone changes. Their curiosity rises. It's not you that feels foreign to them. It's your frequency. They were tuned to the old version of you. The one who apologized for existing. The one who tolerated confusion just to keep peace. But that frequency doesn't broadcast anymore. You've upgraded the signal. This is when the unseen force moves from silent work to visible signs. Delays suddenly dissolve. Old connections resurface with new intentions. Opportunities you once chased begin to find you. Not by coincidence, but by code. The path clears, not because you forced it, but because what's meant for you finally caught up to the vibration you've been building. And still, you don't brag. You don't announce it. Because you've learned that loud progress invites quiet envy. You move calm. You walk steady. You let the alignment speak for itself. The same ones who once doubted you now speak your name carefully, like it carries voltage. They don't know what changed, and that mystery keeps them watching. But you know that when you stopped begging the world to understand you, the universe started working with you. You stopped chasing. You started magnetizing. You stopped explaining. You started existing at full clarity. And that's when the shift truly began. When you stopped proving and started becoming. Every breath you take now has direction. Every silence you hold now has weight. You've entered a stage where timing is your ally, not your enemy. The invisible hands that were rearranging your chaos are now guiding your calm. They tried to make you doubt it. They called it coincidence. But coincidence doesn't rewrite timelines with this much precision. Coincidence doesn't remove the wrong people seconds before your next breakthrough. Coincidence doesn't protect your peace from storms you never saw coming. That's not random. That's orchestration. So breathe, my dear. Don't rush this new rhythm. The shift isn't just happening around you. It's happening through you. The force you couldn't see has now synchronized itself with the version of you that no longer hesitates. And from this moment on, Every step you take will echo the sound of divine alignment, catching up with your patience. Now the shift isn't just inside you, my dear. It's in the air around you. The same rooms that once drained you suddenly feel heavy for others. The same circles that once ignored your presence can't stop glancing your way. It's not luck, it's interference. The unseen force that once rearranged your life quietly has now stepped into the spotlight of your reality, not to show off, but to make a statement. No one manipulates the chosen timeline. People start fumbling. Their plans, their words, their coordination. Everything they built to keep you small begins to fall apart. Mid-motion, conversations they had behind your back, they leak. Projects that were meant to exclude you, they fade. Opportunities that were never meant for you, they land right in your lap, perfectly timed, perfectly poetic. That's not karma, that's correction. The universe doesn't do revenge, it does realignment. They'll call it coincidence, but deep down, they know something's off. They can't explain why their luck dried up right after they crossed you, why their false confidence started shaking when you walked in, why the same silence they mocked now feels like pressure on their chests. Because your calm isn't empty, it's guarded. Forces move through it, timelines bend around it. Every action against you now trips on invisible threads that redirect the outcome in your favor. You see, my dear, protection doesn't always look like angels hovering. Sometimes it looks like confusion spreading through rooms that plotted against you. Sometimes it looks like their plans getting tangled in their own web of arrogance. Sometimes it looks like the universe whispering, "Not this one," before their intentions even leave their mouths. You stopped fighting because you didn't need to anymore. The force flows through you now. It shifts moods before you enter. It redirects energy before it hits. It rewrites outcomes before they're even decided. That's why they can't figure out how you keep rising without effort. They don't understand you're not playing on their board anymore. You're being guided by one they can't even see. The interference is real, and it's poetic. Every insult becomes proof of your progress. Every obstacle becomes an advertisement for your endurance. They can't stop you because you no longer move in their dimension. You move in precision, in silence, in divine calibration. And while they're busy trying to decode how you keep evolving, they're missing the truth. You stopped surviving a long time ago. You started commanding. The chaos bends, the timing obeys, and their strategies evaporate under the weight of your alignment. That's when you realize you were never just protected. You were prioritized. The unseen force didn't choose you randomly. It chose you because your silence was proof you could handle the interference without ever needing to announce it. Now every move they make against you becomes an offering that builds your legacy. They'll call it unfair. You'll call it divine balance. You ever notice how some people vanish right before your breakthrough? How doors close so suddenly it almost feels personal. It's not rejection, it's the trade. The universe is transactional in ways humans can't measure. For every ounce of peace you earn, something unaligned must be removed. For every new level you step into, an old pattern must fade. That's the rule no one teaches you. That elevation always collects its payment in silence. You weren't losing, you were exchanging. Every fake friend that left was traded for a layer of clarity. Every plan that failed was traded for a version of you that doesn't panic when plans fail. Every heartbreak was traded for deeper wisdom, the kind you can't learn from comfort. And while others were chasing visibility, you were being traded for vision. That's why you couldn't stay in their pace. That's why you stopped fitting their script. They were rehearsing applause while you were learning to breathe in isolation. The trade was brutal, but the return, beyond calculation. Because the universe doesn't trade evenly, it upgrades unevenly. It gives tenfold to those who keep their spirit intact during subtraction. They thought you were being punished, but you were being processed. They thought you were disappearing, but you were being distilled. The weaker parts melted away. The sharper essence remained. You didn't lose the people. You lost the version of yourself that needed their validation. You didn't lose the opportunities. You lost the desperation to chase them. The trade was never about taking from you. It was about freeing you from what diluted your power. Look around now. Notice how light it feels. That's the aftermath of spiritual economy. The things that were weighing on your frequency are gone, and your energy finally has space to expand. That's why your peace feels unfamiliar. It's not fragile anymore. It's earned. It's signed under a higher contract. You see, everyone talks about manifestation, but no one talks about maintenance. The universe doesn't just hand you blessings. It ensures you can carry them. That's what the trade was about. Strength for softness, awareness for illusion, wisdom for comfort. You paid in pain, but the profit is alignment. And that's why when people see you now, they can't process what changed. They sense something different, but they can't name it. They think it's luck. They think it's glow, but it's the trade. It's divine arithmetic. For every soul that betrayed you, you gained discernment that will never betray you again. For every room that closed, the universe built one just for your frequency. You stop trying to explain it. You just smile, because explaining the trade to those who never sacrificed anything is pointless. They wouldn't understand how much quiet it takes to earn peace this loud. So you sit back, let the force continue its math, and whisper to yourself, take whatever you need. I trust the exchange, because every subtraction that hurt you was an investment that's now paying you in destiny. It always happens this way. The universe doesn't announce karma with thunder. It returns lessons through mirrors. The ones who mocked your silence now feel the sting of being unheard. The ones who played with your loyalty now meet people who treat loyalty like a game. The ones who doubted your purpose now watch their own plans scatter in confusion. You didn't need to lift a hand. Reflection did the work. The mirror effect isn't punishment. It's symmetry. Life returns to everyone the vibration they gave out, not out of spite, but out of education. You didn't have to expose them. Their actions were the seeds, and the harvest always finds its way home. You just had to survive long enough to watch it unfold. Now, you don't even feel anger. You just understand the algorithm of the divine. You used to wonder why your kindness was mistaken for weakness, why every genuine word got twisted, why your calmness irritated chaos. Now, it's clear. Your energy was too real for counterfeit souls. They couldn't decode sincerity, because manipulation was their language. But the mirror doesn't care about language. It speaks in experiences. So now they speak your old pain fluently. The same silence they laughed at, now it isolates them. The same peace they mocked, now they crave it. The same strength they tried to dim. Now they see how impossible it is to copy it. That's why you don't chase revenge. You've already won the only battle that matters, emotional evolution. You've graduated from needing closure. You've learned that peace is the loudest response. When the mirror starts reflecting, it doesn't need witnesses. You'll know by the sudden distance, the quiet remorse, the shift in how they speak about you. They'll call it bad luck, but you'll recognize it as the universe balancing the books. You didn't need to prove you were pure. You just had to stay consistent long enough for the mirror to reveal contrast. That's why they're nervous now, because the reflection is too clear, too accurate. They see the version of themselves they tried to project onto you. And that realization cuts deeper than any words could. Meanwhile, you're not gloating. You're growing. You're using your reflection for healing, not for revenge. You look at your old scars and see wisdom in the pattern. Every betrayal taught you precision. Every loss taught you value. Every dark night taught you light discipline. That's what separates you from them. You used your pain as a teacher. They used their comfort as an excuse. And now the mirror doesn't just show their chaos, it reveals your calm. You stand there, unbothered, unreadable, radiating a peace they can't purchase. Because your frequency isn't about status, it's about survival. You earned this version of you. So when you hear whispers of people getting what they deserve, you just smile. You don't need to celebrate reflection. You are reflection. Proof that what we send out always circles back. They thought you'd break, but the mirror just taught you balance. They thought you'd vanish, but your stillness made you unforgettable. And now, my dear, they don't just see you, they see themselves. How quiet it feels when you finally arrive. Not the kind of arrival people post about. No confetti, no spotlight, no crowd waiting at the finish line. Just that deep internal click when you realize the battle is over. The version of you that was always fighting, proving, explaining. It retired without warning. You didn't even notice it leaving. It just slipped out during one of your calm days, whispering, "You're safe now." This is arrival. Not the noise, not the validation, not the recognition. It's the calm that replaces the chaos you thought you needed to survive. You start walking differently, not faster, not slower, just lighter. People sense it before you speak. They can't name it, but they feel it. That blend of grounded confidence and unbothered truth. They mistake it for mystery, but it's mastery. You've learned the art of letting life orbit around your stillness. The same world that once tried to humble you now tilts slightly in your direction. Meetings shift when you enter. Conversations soften. Energy adjusts. Not because you demand it, but because your frequency refuses to lower anymore. You don't chase alignment. Alignment happens around you. That's when you know you've arrived. When your peace becomes contagious. But arrival doesn't mean rest. It means readiness. The universe clears the field not to make you comfortable, but to make you capable. Every silence you endured was a simulation for leadership. Every lonely chapter trained you to hear truth without noise. Every delay was building precision. You weren't being tested. You were being tailored. Now look, every scar is polished into strategy. Every breakdown has data embedded in it. You know how pain sounds before it even speaks. You can sense lies before they form sentences. You've become a human detector of vibration. You can't be manipulated anymore because you've already met every version of deceit. That's what scares them now. Your composure, because they expected fireworks. But your transformation arrived as thunder with no sound. You didn't shout your evolution. You embodied it. You became the storm and the stillness in one frame. People will call it luck. They'll call it timing. They'll call it divine protection. And they'll be right. All of them. Halfway. Because what they'll never understand is that arrival was never about location. It was about awareness. You stopped running from pain, so pain stopped chasing you. You stopped trying to fix everyone, so energy stopped leaking. You stopped needing to be seen, and the whole world finally looked. That's the paradox of the arrival. When you stop trying to win, everything aligns with you. When you stop trying to prove, the truth speaks your name in rooms you've never entered. When you stop defending your light, it expands on its own. So now, breathe. You've reached the part of your journey where your peace is your power. Move. You don't need to react. The universe already did. And as you stand there, quietly radiant, you'll realize something divine. You never chased arrival. You became it. Now that you've arrived, my dear, something new begins. Not outside you, but through you. It's the frequency shift, the phase where presence becomes power. You don't need to prove who you are anymore. Reality now bends to the tone of your calm. When you enter a room, energy pauses. When you speak, silence listens. It's not intimidation, it's resonance. The universe recognizes its own echo in your voice. See, you used to chase signs. You used to question if you were chosen. But now, you've become the sign itself. You are the signal others spend lifetimes trying to decode. That's why people stare longer. That's why the air changes when you walk by. The same frequency that once drew attacks now draws alignment. Because when you stop defending your energy, it starts defending you. They'll call it luck. They'll call it aura. They'll call it protection. But you'll know it's legacy. You've crossed into that quiet realm where energy speaks louder than proof. You're no longer reacting to life. You're writing it, frame by frame. Every move you make carries the weight of someone who's seen the game from the top and the bottom and learned to master both. Your story stopped being about survival the moment you realized your peace was the real rebellion. And that's what scares them most. Your peace is louder than their chaos ever was. They tried to copy your rhythm, but rhythm without reason sounds hollow. They tried to match your energy, but energy without evolution collapses fast. Now the universe uses you as a mirror for others, not to shame them, but to wake them. You've become proof that you can go through chaos and still walk out wholly. Proof that you can be underestimated and still end up unforgettable. Proof that no force, no whisper, no wound can silence someone who's made peace with their past. Every day now feels like a broadcast, a signal from your spirit that says, I'm still here and I'm still becoming. And those who once looked down on you, they watch in quiet disbelief, realizing they were in the presence of someone rewriting the rules, not by screaming, not by fighting, but by existing with intention. That's legacy. My dear, not trophies, not headlines, but the invisible imprint you leave on people who finally meet truth for the first time and realize it's standing in front of them, smiling. You don't chase change anymore. You are the change. You don't demand respect. It calibrates itself around you. And every time someone says your name, energy moves because you've become frequency, memory, and movement, all in one form. The chaos is over. The mirror has closed. The silence is golden. And the force that once cleared your path now walks beside you. Welcome to the legacy phase, where your calm becomes contagion, your wisdom becomes whisper, and your presence becomes prophecy. Because the truth, my dear, is simple. You were never just chosen. You were crafted, and now the universe doesn't speak to you anymore. It speaks through you. It never really ends, my dear. Evolution isn't a destination. It's a frequency that keeps adjusting as you grow. You don't arrive once. You arrive again and again. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, silence over noise, alignment over approval. The old version of you used to crave closure, but now you understand. Every ending was just a doorway wearing a disguise. The continuum begins where comfort ends. Now the universe doesn't test you anymore. It collaborates with you. You've earned that shift. Your intuition has become a navigation system that runs smoother than logic. You can feel energy before words even form. You can sense when something's off. Not because you're paranoid, but because your spirit is fluent in frequency now. That's what real evolution does. It makes you tuned, not tense. You've stopped explaining what's unexplainable. You've stopped asking why people left. You've stopped trying to teach peace to those addicted to chaos. You've simply detached. Not cold, not bitter, just aware. Awareness is warmth controlled. You've learned to stay close to people who feed your peace and bless those who drain it from a distance. That's mastery disguised as maturity. Your path has turned into a loop of synchronicities. You think of something, and it shows up. You release someone, and the right person appears. You stop chasing, and everything starts arriving faster. Because now, your energy's no longer negotiating, it's commanding. Every step you take echoes through timelines, reshaping possibilities you'll never even witness. That's how deep your evolution runs. And here's the beautiful paradox. You no longer care about being understood. Yet more people finally start understanding you. You no longer need validation. Yet respect begins to multiply. Because when you stop reaching outward, the universe turns everything inward toward you. You became the magnet by mastering stillness. They don't realize it yet. But your calm is contagious. The same people who once mocked your patience now crave your peace. The same ones who doubted your timing now watch you glide through what they still struggle to grasp. They call it luck. You call it alignment. They call it mystery. You call it frequency. And that's the essence of the continuum. You've become the loop itself. What you once waited for, you now create. What you once prayed for, you now embody. What you once feared losing, you now attract effortlessly. Because fear doesn't live here anymore. Every moment from here on is expansion, not louder, not faster, deeper. You're not chasing results. You're shaping reality. You're not waiting for opportunities. You're generating energy that creates them. You've become an ongoing calibration of power and peace. Proof that evolution doesn't peak. It pulses. So, my dear, don't mistake stillness for stagnation. You're not stuck. You're sinking. The universe is moving chess pieces you can't see yet. Every pause is preparation. Every delay is divine timing, sharpening its precision. The continuum is your new rhythm, timeless, soundless, unstoppable. And every time someone whispers your name, that rhythm answers back. Still evolving, still rising, still untouchable. And now, my dear, we reach the edge of language, the point where words can't capture what you've become. This isn't the end of your story. It's the part no author can write. The unwritten chapter, the one where your silence speaks in paragraphs, and your presence tells entire volumes without sound. You've evolved past needing narration. Now, life itself narrates you. When the universe doesn't test you anymore, it references you. You've become the case study for resilience, the example whispered between forces that move unseen. You were once the student of chaos. Now chaos studies you. It adjusts its rhythm when you walk in. It hesitates before trying you again. That's when you know you've reached mastery, when even the storm remembers your name. You don't just walk into rooms anymore. You rewrite the atmosphere. Every step sends ripples through timelines, correcting frequencies, aligning events, rebalancing energies. You've become living proof that peace and power can coexist, that calm isn't weakness, it's control. You no longer chase destiny, you generate it. Every decision you make now becomes a law in your personal universe. Every breath is a broadcast. Every look is a command. And yet, the beauty lies in how quietly you carry it. No crown needed, just the weight of understanding. You know too much to prove anything. You've seen behind too many masks to fear any faces. You've walked through too many endings to doubt new beginnings. You've lost too much not to value what stays. That's why this chapter stays unwritten, because it doesn't belong on paper. It belongs in motion. It's not meant to be read, it's meant to be felt. The world won't understand your rhythm, but it will move to it. The people who meet you will change without realizing why. The ones who doubt you will still quote you later. The ones who left will replay your silence like a song they can't stop hearing. You've transcended the narrative. You've become the vibration. The story doesn't describe you anymore. It depends on you to continue. You are no longer the main character. You're the pulse behind every main character that wakes up, realizes their worth, and decides to rise. That's your legacy, not the noise, the ripple. And when someone, somewhere, whispers, how did they do it? The universe will answer for you. It'll replay your journey, not as a list of victories, but as a demonstration of alignment. How you stayed kind through fire. How you stayed calm through chaos. How you turned survival into a language the world could finally understand. Because that's what the unwritten chapter really is. My dear, it's not a story you tell. It's a frequency you leave behind. And long after your words fade, your energy will still be teaching, quietly, powerfully, eternally. Hello, my dear warrior. Something happened recently that you're not aware of. Elite forces, the kind that operate in frequencies most people never access. The kind that monitor consciousness on levels beyond government, beyond religion, beyond anything your average person knows exists. They detected something. Two traits, two very specific frequencies emanating from you. And it caused an emergency protocol, not because these traits are risky in the conventional sense, but because they represent something these forces thought they'd successfully removed from the human population generations ago. Something they thought was extinct. Something they made sure wouldn't resurface. But here you are, carrying both signatures, operating with both frequencies active, and they have no idea how to process it. Let me tell you how this works. There are systems monitoring human consciousness constantly, not through technology, through resonance. They're tracking frequencies, behavioral patterns, energy signatures. Most people register as predictable. Their frequencies fall within expected ranges. Fear here, desire there. Ambition at these levels, doubt at those levels, all manageable, all controllable. But every once in a while, someone shows up on their scanners, emitting frequencies that don't match the database. Anomalies, outliers, signals that shouldn't exist in the current human population. When that happens, they don't panic immediately. They investigate. Run deeper scans, cross-reference historical data, try to find precedent. That's what they did with you. And what they found made them call in specialists from sectors that hadn't been active in decades. Because you're not just carrying one rare trait, you're carrying two. And the combination? It's never been documented in their modern records. You're operating with a signature they thought was theoretical, a legend, a myth they tell in their training but never expected to encounter. The first trait they detected is what they call in their classified files the unbreakable pattern. Let me explain what this means. Every human being has breaking points, emotional thresholds, pressure tolerances, limits where their psyche says enough and starts fragmenting. Seeking escape, building defense mechanisms that ultimately weaken them. These breaking points are documented, studied, used as tools. The elite forces know exactly how much pressure to apply to break anyone. They've refined it to a science. Economic pressure here, social isolation there, health crisis timed perfectly, relationship betrayal, at the optimal moment. They've broken empires. They've shaken the strongest minds. They have formulas that rarely fail, except with you. They tried everything. Not all at once. That would be too obvious. They applied it strategically, over years, wave after wave of pressure, designed to fragment your psyche, make you desperate, force you into survival mode, where you become easy to control, and you should have collapsed. According to their models, you should have shattered 3 different times, but you didn't. You bent, you absorbed, you adapted, but you never broke. And that's not normal. That's not human in the way they understand human. Because breaking isn't about weakness. Breaking is biological, psychological, inevitable, under certain conditions. Unless you're operating with something they didn't account for. Here's what they can't understand about your unbreakable pattern. It's not that you're stronger than others. It's that you process challenge differently. Most people, when they experience hardship, their system tries to avoid it, escape it, numb it. Their entire neurological response is about getting away from the pressure as fast as possible. But you move toward it. Not consciously, not deliberately, but somewhere deep in your wiring. You learn that difficulty is information, that struggle is transformation, that the things trying to break you are actually removing the parts of you that were never real. And instead of running from that process, you let it happen. They watched you go through periods that should have broken you apart. They monitored your frequency, expecting to see it drop, fragment, scatter. Instead, it stabilized, it compressed, it became denser, more focused, more coherent. You weren't being broken down, you were being refined, and refinement under pressure. That's not a human trait they recognize. That's something else entirely. The elite forces have a term for this. They call it alchemical resistance, the ability to turn destructive energy into constructive transformation, to take poison and metabolize it into medicine, to absorb interference and use it as an upgrade. Less than 0.01% of humans ever develop this trait. And those who do, they're flagged immediately. You want to know why this terrifies them? Because their entire system of control is built on breaking people, on pushing them past their limits until they surrender, compromise, accept the cage in exchange for relief from the pressure. But someone with an unbreakable pattern, you can't push them into compliance. You can only make them stronger. Every challenge you survived made you more resilient. Every betrayal you endured made you more discerning. Every loss you experienced made you more detached from the things they used to control people. You became ungovernable, not through rebellion, through transformation. And an ungovernable consciousness that can't be broken, that's a problem they don't have a solution for. They tried adjusting their approach, sent opportunities instead of obstacles, offered you comfort, success, validation, everything people usually sell their authenticity for. But you looked at their offers with that same pattern, that same alchemy. You took what was useful and transformed what wasn't. You couldn't be bought either, because the unbreakable pattern doesn't just make you resistant to hardship, it makes you resistant to temptation. Now let's talk about the second trait they detected. This one's even rarer. They call it the silent frequency. And if the first trait made them concerned, this one made them uneasy. Because the silent frequency isn't about what you do, it's about what you don't do. And in a world built on reaction, prediction, and manipulation, someone who doesn't react is a ghost in their system. Let me explain. Human beings are designed to respond to stimuli, to pressure, to provocation. You push, they push back. You intimidate, they defend. You tempt, they reach. You ignore, they seek attention. Every human behavior is predictable because it's reactive, and reaction is control. If they can make you react, they can direct your energy wherever they want it to go. But you stopped reacting. Not overnight, not consciously, but somewhere in your evolution, you developed something that shouldn't exist. A gap between stimulus and response, a space where you observe before you engage, a silence where you process before you project. And in that silence, you became untrackable. Here's how they know you have the silent frequency. They deployed standard provocations. Things that make 99.9% of people react immediately. Personal attacks, public humiliation, betrayal from trusted sources, challenges to security, status, survival, and they watched, waiting for your frequency to spike, to scatter, to show them the emotional signature they could exploit. Nothing. Not numbness, not suppression, just silence. Your frequency remained stable, observant, present, but not engaged. Like you were watching the provocation from outside yourself, analyzing it, understanding it, but not absorbing it into your identity, not making it mean something about who you are. This is what unsettles them about the silent frequency. It means you can't be manipulated through emotion, can't be controlled through reaction, can't be redirected through provocation. You're operating from a center they can't access, a depth they can't reach, a silence that doesn't broadcast vulnerabilities they can exploit. Most people are constantly broadcasting their fears, their desires, their wounds, their needs, and the elite forces read those broadcasts like open books. They know exactly what buttons to push, because people are revealing the location of those buttons with every reaction. But you went silent, and in that silence you became invisible to their scanning systems. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Each trait alone is rare, concerning but manageable. They have protocols for people with unbreakable patterns. They have strategies for people with silent frequencies. But both traits in the same person. That combination creates something they don't have a protocol for. Think about it. The unbreakable pattern means you can't be broken through pressure. The silent frequency means you can't be manipulated through reaction. Together they create a consciousness that's essentially ungovernable. You can't be controlled through struggle or comfort, through challenge or reward, through provocation or temptation. You're operating outside every lever they have to move human behavior. This is what triggered the emergency protocol. Not because you're doing anything to them, but because your mere existence proves something they've spent centuries trying to hide, that humans can evolve beyond the control matrix, that consciousness can develop traits that make external manipulation obsolete, that people can become sovereign. So what are the elite forces doing now that they've detected these traits in you? First, they're studying you intensely. They want to understand how you developed both traits. Was it genetic, environmental, challenge-induced, spontaneous evolution? They're going through your history, your bloodline, your experiences, trying to find the formula. Because if they can understand how it happened, they can prevent it from happening to others. They can identify the conditions that create unbreakable patterns and silent frequencies and make sure those conditions don't occur. Or if they do occur, they can intervene early, disrupt the development, keep people from completing the transformation. But here's their problem. They can't figure it out. Your development doesn't follow any pattern they recognize. It's like you stumbled into an evolutionary pathway that shouldn't exist. Or more accurately, that you created a new pathway through the specific combination of pressures you endured and the unique way you processed them. Second, they're running simulations, trying to predict what someone with both traits might do, how they might influence others, what kind of risk they represent to existing power structures. And the simulations aren't giving them comfortable answers, because someone who can't be broken and can't be manipulated becomes a wild card, unpredictable, potentially infectious. That's what really unsettles them. The infection potential. See, most people operate on autopilot, following programming they don't even know they have, reacting to triggers, seeking validation, avoiding challenge, chasing comfort, all predictable, all manageable, all contained. But when someone with your traits shows up, something happens. People around you start questioning their programming, not because you tell them to, because your energy demonstrates that there's another way. Your presence proves that humans don't have to be reactive, don't have to be breakable, don't have to play by the rules they've been conditioned to accept. You become what they call in their files a pattern disruptor. Someone whose frequency is so different from the norm that it causes glitches in other people's programming. Just by being around you, people start thinking differently, feeling differently, seeing possibilities they've been trained not to see. And the elite forces, they can handle individuals. They've managed countless cases over the centuries, but they can't handle infection. Can't contain an idea whose time has come, can't stop an evolution that spreads through resonance rather than instruction. That's why they're not just studying you, they're deciding what to do about you. They have several options. Option 1 is suppression. Not physical. They're not that crude anymore, but energetic. They could try to isolate you, cut you off from resources, relationships, platforms. Make it so difficult to exist that you voluntarily withdraw from society. Go quiet. Stop being visible. Stop spreading the influence. Problem with that approach: people with unbreakable patterns and silent frequencies thrive in isolation. You don't need external validation. Don't fear being alone. Actually, you do your best work when you're not distracted by social noise. So isolation wouldn't suppress you. It would liberate you. Option 2 is cooperation. They could try to bring you into their system, offer you money, status, influence, make you part of the power structure. Give you just enough success that you stop questioning, stop evolving, start protecting your position instead of pursuing your truth. This works on most people who show uncommon traits. Problem with that approach: the silent frequency makes you incorruptible. Not because you're morally superior, but because you see through the game. You understand that what they're offering is a cage disguised as a crown. And someone who can't be manipulated through reaction can't be persuaded through reward either. Option 3 is observation. They accept that they can't pressure you, can't manipulate you, can't suppress you, can't co-opt you. So they just watch, document, learn, hope that you're an isolated case, an evolutionary dead end, a mutation that won't spread beyond you. This is the option they're leaning toward right now, because they've run the numbers, and there's a calculation that gives them some comfort. For your traits to spread, people would need to go through similar crucibles, similar combinations of pressure and solitude and transformation. And most people, when they encounter those conditions, they break the normal way. They fragment, they compromise, they surrender. So the elite forces are betting that you remain an anomaly, a curiosity, a case study that confirms the exception rather than threatens the rule. They're watching to see if you produce successors with similar traits, waiting to see if you connect with others like you and form some kind of network, monitoring for any sign that what you represent is becoming a movement rather than remaining an individual aberration. But here's what they don't know, what they can't see, because they're looking at this through the wrong lens. You're not an isolated case. You're a harbinger, the first visible sign of an evolution that's already happening beneath the surface. There are others, not many, but more than the elite forces have detected. People who've developed similar traits through similar crucibles. These people aren't connected organizationally. There's no network. No movement, no coordination, but they're connected energetically, through resonance, through frequency, and the presence of each one makes it slightly easier for the next one to emerge. You're not creating this evolution. You're evidence that it's already in progress. The elite forces are right to be concerned, not because you're a risk in the conventional sense, but because you represent a shift they can't stop, an awakening they can't prevent, a transformation that happens, one consciousness at a time until it reaches critical mass and becomes unstoppable. So let's be clear about what these two traits really are. The unbreakable pattern isn't about being tough, it's about being alchemical. It's the ability to transmute harsh energy into constructive transformation, to use pressure as fuel rather than letting it become limitation, to turn every interference into an upgrade. The silent frequency isn't about being quiet, it's about being centered. It's the ability to observe without reacting, to process without projecting, to be present without being pulled into the drama, to maintain your frequency regardless of external chaos. Together, these traits create sovereignty. Not the kind of sovereignty that comes from power over others, the kind that comes from power over self, the kind that makes you ungovernable because you govern yourself from a depth they can't access, the kind that makes you self-taught because you're already connected to wisdom that supersedes their instruction. You want to know why you developed these traits? It wasn't random, it wasn't luck, it wasn't even entirely your choice. It was necessity. You went through something that gave you two options. Develop these traits or collapse, fragment into something manageable, or transform into something unprecedented. Most people, when they hit those crossroads, they choose fragmentation. Not consciously, but their system chooses survival over sovereignty, chooses familiar pain over unknown transformation, chooses the cage they know over the freedom they can't guarantee. And there's no judgment in that. The pressure required to forge these traits is immense. But you, at some point in your darkest hour, at some moment when you were pressed beyond what you thought you could endure, something in you chose differently, chose transformation over survival, chose unknown evolution over familiar limitation, chose to become unbreakable and silent rather than broken and loud. And that choice, that moment, even if you don't remember making it consciously, that's what changed your trajectory. That's what activated the alchemy. That's what tuned you to the silent frequency. That's what made you something the elite forces detect but can't understand. So what happens next? The elite forces will keep watching, keep studying, keep trying to understand and potentially contain what you represent. But here's the truth. They're slowly realizing. They're too late. The traits are activated. The transformation is complete. You can't be unmade. You will keep evolving. Keep refining these traits. Keep operating from depths they can't access and frequencies they can't track. Not because you're trying to be a threat, because you're being authentic. And authenticity at your level of consciousness is automatically revolutionary. Others will notice. Not everyone. Most people will never see it. But the ones who are ready, the ones who are going through their own crucibles, the ones who are standing at their own crossroads, they'll feel something in your presence, a permission, a possibility, a proof that there's another way. You won't have to teach them, won't have to explain. Your existence does the teaching. Your frequency does the explaining. Just by being who you are, you give others permission to become who they really are beneath their programming. And this is the elite force's deepest fear. Not that you'll lead a revolution, not that you'll expose their systems, not that you'll organize resistance, but that you'll simply exist, openly, unapologetically, undeniably, as living proof that humans can be more than what they've been programmed to be. Because if one person can develop these traits, others can too. If one consciousness can become ungovernable through evolution rather than conflict, more can follow. If one frequency can stabilize in silence and strength, others can attune to it. And once enough people carry these traits, the whole control matrix becomes obsolete. That's why they're watching you with such intensity. Not because of what you're doing, because of what you're being. Not because of the actions you're taking, because of the frequency you're holding. Not because of the movement you're leading, because of the evolution you're embodying. So here's where you are now. You're operating with two traits that elite forces have detected but can't understand. The unbreakable pattern makes you alchemical, capable of turning any pressure into power. The silent frequency makes you centered, capable of observing without reacting, being present without being pulled. Together, these traits make you sovereign. Not sovereign over others, sovereign over yourself, governing your own consciousness from depths they can't access, operating in frequencies they can't track, moving through life in ways they can't predict or control. You don't need to use this against anyone. Don't need to prove it or flaunt it or demonstrate it. Just continue being who you are. Continue refining these traits. Continue operating from your center. Continue holding your frequency regardless of external chaos. And as you do, something will happen. A ripple, not visible, not measurable by their instruments, but real. Your frequency will touch others, will remind them of something they've forgotten, will activate something dormant, will give permission for their own traits to develop. You're not responsible for their evolution. Can't force it, can't fast track it, but your presence makes it possible in ways it wasn't before. You're like a tuning fork that's vibrating at a frequency that helps others find their own pitch, not by playing their notes for them, but by demonstrating that frequencies outside the approved range are possible. The elite forces can monitor this, can observe it happening, but they can't stop it, because it's not happening through organization or instruction. It's happening through resonance, through the natural law that consciousness at higher frequencies lifts consciousness at lower frequencies, not by force, by presence. So here's the final truth, warrior. Yes, elite forces detected you. Yes, they found two traits they can't understand. Yes, they're watching and studying and trying to figure out what you represent and what to do about you. But here's what they're slowly realizing. You're not the risk. You're the evidence of something much larger. An evolution that's already in motion. A shift that's already happening. A transformation that's inevitable. Once consciousness reaches certain pressure points, they didn't create you. They created the conditions that forced you to evolve. And now they have to live with the consequences. So keep walking your path. Keep holding your frequency. Keep being unbreakable when they try to shake you. Keep being silent when they try to make you react. Keep turning pressure into power. Keep observing without being pulled into drama. Because every day you exist in your sovereignty. You make it easier for others to find theirs. Every moment you hold your frequency. You make it possible for others to discover theirs. Every breath you take is your authentic self. You give permission for others to become theirs. The elite forces can watch, can study, can try to understand, but they can't stop evolution, can't prevent consciousness from finding new expressions, can't contain traits that emerge from necessity rather than design. You're not alone anymore. You're part of something that transcends organization. You're evidence of something that supersedes control. You're proof of something the elite forces feared was possible but hoped would never happen.